All right. And then the other crazy part is that
Neat.
this isn't even like the right piece of paper. Unfortunately, that paper was hanging out in the wrong spot. Okay, so that's good, right? Yes. We got this thing in the corner, but I don't really care that much because I got plenty of drawing space and there's plenty of room on the top, and his tongue tail is not in the shadow. Okay. Whew. All right. So sorry, I apologize. I have to start again, but I'll go quick. So we're gonna get the arc of the bridge, then the side of the bridge, and then it S curves into the base of the bridge. We're gonna show the escargot neck, coming out, even though I'm not gonna really detail that first. And then you have the inside of the shell, you have the front of the shell, which has a thickness, which can be either light or dark depending on where we're looking. The right side here is light, and then I think it turns into being actually a dark front, but we'll cover that as we go. And then there's a short straight passage before you hit the incline on that shell. And I think where I left off before we the last thing I said before I started the recording was that where you get to the top of that shell, where it peaks at the height, you run a vertical down and it does line up with the spiral. The spiral of the shell is like surprisingly low. So I think it's weird it's kind of interesting to have, we have the starting point of the silhouette of the shell and the start of the tube as it spirals. This is, in fact, a cylinder. So I'm just going to do the thick part of the shell. And by drawing the thick part of the shell, I'm simultaneously drawing the bottom of the thick part of the shell, but also the top of the, as the spiral goes in. So here's the bottom of the thick part of the shell, which the same line helps represent the spiral. All right, but that's just, first things first. Now I'm even wondering if the shell is like at an angle. If I'm looking at the cube of the shell, it's got a top, it's got a side plane, and then it's got a front plane, in theory. And I'm wondering if the side plane here is really steeper than I initially had thought. And then, it's almost like the top of this, the top plane and the front plane are more legitimately straight. So it could be like kind of an oblong thing. It's not, don't think too hard about that cube, but the spiral is on the side. The top of the shell is the top of the box, and then the front of the box is going to be the, where the shell opens up. Now you can't, even though it's a rounded spiral, you can still see it in those distinct planes where you see, three sides of a box. All right. So we got the bottom of this tube. So I'm not worrying about the spiral right now. I'm just really thinking about the main section of this tube. And we have lines that go longitudinally, meaning lengthwise. They're helping describe the curving of that shell. And those lines are kind of directional, but they're also tonal. So they can help describe that there is a shadow. There's a light, the lighter part of the shell is on top, and then the darker part of the shell is at the bottom. So there's the way that the directions of these marks really only go in two directions. X long ways. We can accrue those pretty quickly. And then Y going sideways. And these are affectionately known as bracelet lines, because if you translate this shell into like a wrist, the bracelet would run in this direction. And as the shell curves, so do the bracelet lines. So it goes parallel. These bracelet lines angle up. They hit the peak just like the silhouette line, and then they start to curve down. we already have got like a bunch of structure without even doing too much. So I'm trying to make these marks, you know, conform to those two directions. And my pencil, he's using kind of a greasy crayon, and the way that the crayon drags across the stone has a distinctively different look and a different feel than graphite on paper. They are actually, I would consider them pretty similar, but no, they are in fact different looks. So as you're copying his piece, you're going to have a pencil drawing. He's going to have a lithography drawing. I just know that they're going to be a little bit different. So I'm coming around the bottom of the shell, and it's leveling out, and it's in fact making contact with the ground. And there's an intersection point right at the middle of this bottom where the tongue of the tail, like the poem, I keep saying the tail tongue because of the poem that he had associated with it. You can just show where it's in contact with the ground. The tail kicks up. That classic convention that objects that are in contact with the ground get a low highlight, and then the top of the form will have a lighter line. The bottom of the form gets a darker line because it's the underplane. There's a cast shadow from that tail on the ground. So this little tongue tail, the marks, are a number of different things. They're the shadow of the contact point of the snail with the ground. There's the cast shadow because the tail kicks up, and then there's the shadow on the underside of the tail. Very few longitudinal lines, but there is another section which probably defines the edge. And I suspect that this is like the top of the tail, and then there's the side plane of the tail. I'm kind of overemphasizing this hypothetical form by building that tabletop of the top and then the aggressive side plane, and seeing how they connect into a tip. The value of the tail is lighter than the shell. So if you went heavy on the shell, it's okay. It's supposed to be that way. As the tube starts to curl under, I'm suspecting that this corner of the cube is leaning even further towards us, and that's why it goes even darker in the shadow. Now the escargot shell I'm claiming that it's going into shadow, but it might actually have light parts and dark parts on the shell itself. So you can shade something dark in your drawing because it's a dark object, and you can also shade it dark because it's a light object that's going into the shadow. So when you make your shading marks, it's good to clarify in your head whether you're shading something because it's a dark object or because it's in shadow. And even as I'm shading in the tones, the forms become a little nondescript because they're so dark. If you maintain your XY mark making codes, you should not run into any trouble. There seems to be a dark crease where that top shell meets with the bottom shell. Very interesting. That's what I'm sketching right here. I may be overdoing it even. So I'm using dark marks to describe the roundness of the above, and I'm using the curve to describe the form of the bottom. And where those two sets of marks kiss, you get a line. And the darker you make that line, the deeper the crevice feels. And like I said, I might be overdoing it. Yeah, there's the front plane of this escargot right here. The bottom half of this tube goes darker. I'm using bracelet lines. Now I'll use longitudinal lines to darken the part of the shell that is in contact with the ground. The rim above that. And then the little teeny center, I can darken that too. This back end seems to have a nice punch, a little dark punch. And then same here. I mean, it's a good time. What happens with the space between the spiral and the the base of that shell is kind of anybody's guess. I suspect we can at least just draw the side of that, and then it cuts into itself, and it probably joins together. There might even be a little bit of fleshiness underneath here. Like the could be a little bit of could be like the front of the shell meeting with the spiral of the shell meeting with the the bottom of the escargot muscle, his slithering bottom. Again, the amount of detail that we did, I mean, I could have blocked out the front of the snail, but it's okay. I don't mind going into this amount of detail because there's not that much going on. There's really three parts. There's the shell, there's the tail, and then there's his neck and head. So I'm even coming back in and punching some of these darks to better establish my silhouette. I had this snail shell kind of flatten out, and it cuts back in. So it's almost like a horseshoe bell. It curves down, but then it cuts back in towards itself. And as the neck shoots out, this is where it's I am going to block this thing out pretty rigidly, and then in its component parts, and then at the end we'll smooth it out really nicely. All right, so yes, the front of the shell is light, the inner part of the shell is dark, this inside of the tunnel, and then even the shadow of the neck that is coming out is a light up against the dark, and he needed that. So he has the dark of the tunnel, and then even the shadow of the snail neck is a lighter gray than the front of the shell. So the shell has two tones: light on the left, dark light on the right, and then dark on the left. And it's a mid-tone in the middle. That's going to be awesome. So here's where where I'm actually going to be useful, in my opinion. You have the top of the neck, which comes out, and we're building cubes. So we're building the top of the cube, and then we're going to have the side of the cube, and then there's going to be a directional change, and it's going to kind of might change form slightly, but it's going to go downhill. But we got to maintain the top plane, and then the side plane, top plane, side plane. And I'm going to break it into three parts. So it's going to be the part that's jutting out, like a train coming out of a tunnel. And then the long swoop leading into the actual head. So some of these lines are construction lines, so they are subject to change later. Anyway, this is the top plane, this is the side plane. It does look like it gets a little bit narrower, and then it widens out almost like a cast net. And we'll do the top plane here, which is going to give us an extended tentacle for one eye, and then another curving tentacle for the second eye. Then we'll go down the side of the box, where we'll get one of the feelers on the bottom. From the top right corner, we're going to go down the side of the box to do a feeler on the bottom, and then we're going to link up the two feelers on the bottom there. I may have overdone it, but what are you going to do? I have a wild alien like snail head. Look at the size of that thing. At least it occupies the space on my drawing. I think I'll be forgiven by the art gods, or I don't think Lautrec will mind that much. Actually, he'll probably laugh. The light is coming from the top left. So the shell itself is casting a shadow onto the neck, and this is kind of like the one of like the best part, in my opinion. It's one of my it's the favorite part of the snail neck going into the tunnel. And so if you watch how he defines the cast shadow is coming from the arc of the tunnel, and it's throwing a shadow onto the snail neck. So the main construction line that like is not going to be allowed to survive is the edge of the cube. So the edge of this cube has got to shift, and what will be helpful is that because of the nature of the form, it's not actually a cube. Let me draw it over here. You have like almost like a curved arch, the top of the cube, side of the cube, and then there's a little skirt that comes out, which is where like the legs are. Do you see this like loose skin? So there's this dark ridge that runs around the bottom, dividing the top muscle, almost like the neck portion, and then like the skirt of the bottom of the escargot hangs out the bottom. So when I say it's a skirt, this is the rounded top, the muscle portion, and then it skirts out. So right below that, as the shoulder, as the muscle curves into itself before it kicks back out, that's where we get this crease of this shadow right in here. So I'm going to leave the edge of the cube because I think you need to see that structure, but I'm adding basically another form. So I'm adding like where the shoulder, the arch of the shoulder meets with the skirt as it kicks back out. Shoulder, skirt, shoulder, skirt. So need the long line to divide.
Yeah, yours reads much truer in form. You're welcome.
So then this is where the shoulder cuts in, the skirt cuts out, and then I'm going to draw a line for the bottom of the skirt. And the reason why this is so important is because the snail is actually not in contact with the ground except for maybe right here. Let me draw that arrow. So this dark line that is on the bottom of the snail, that is a cast shadow on the ground. So this is almost like a shallow tunnel, like there's a shallow gap in here. And it's just like, as I'm drawing the bottom of the skirt, I'm drawing the shadow that the snail is casting on the ground. And he really allows it to get really dark in there. It's this miniature cavern. Yeah, so I can watch how I just clean this up. You can see how he does it too. Like do you see these little teeny bracelet lines right here? Like on the side, that's what these lines are. These lines, that's his thinking. And then he comes across on the top, which I think are even eraser lines. Those are these lines here. So he is in fact thinking this way. He's just being more subtle. And that makes him better. All right, so the way he draws the shadow lines is amazing. So he just comes across very calmly, then he goes down very calmly, and then he doesn't allow the shadow of the crease to be too much. That's the that is the another level of subtlety, that this cast shadow across the top, across the side, and then into the skirt. All that mid-tone gray. It's that it's just allowed to be really quiet, really quiet. And that's where there's just something about shadows being it's more painterly, like just letting the shadows be subdued. It's not that they're not important, it's not that they're not considered, they're just subdued, and he allows the fireworks to take place in the light mass. All right, so I'm going to come down here. The ridge, the shadow is allowed to extend into that ridge. It's going to S curve down, and I don't know why it does this, but maybe that's how he saw it. He's observing the ridge at the base of the neck before the skirt to continue straight out into the tentacle. It's that little eyeball at the end. Let's see what this silhouette top line does. All right, we'll follow the top, and then it dips down. Then it starts to get wider into the head, and then we get the thickness into that tentacle, which gives really the eye. Maybe that's the ticket. Maybe that's where we allow the eyes to be bigger, rounder spheres, so that they match each other. And then the front plane is in shadow. And then where these secondary feelers, though very similar, we'll just make them smaller. And this little bottom one doesn't even have a little nub at the end. So where this drawing is, or my drawing, I think will ultimately be stronger, is that these bottom two feelers relate to one another and have a commonality that is clear, whereas the top two, this is a teardrop shape where that's a circle, and I think having both circles around the same size, even though the stretching of the tentacle is different, but that's the malleable part. But the eyeball never changes. It's not like the eyeball gets bigger or gets smaller. The eyeball is going to stay the same. The magical, extender, go gadget eye extender, that changes size. So, yeah, I think I believe it or not, I think mine is actually clearer, yet clumsier, less subtle, not drawing on a higher level. But I think a better solution actually for communicating the nature of the snail itself. Dare I say? And if Lautrec wants to bring anything up with me in person, we can talk about ears, and then he'll be quiet real fast. Oh man, that would be so fun to make art with those guys. I've got some really gorgeous line variation. The silhouette edges on these tentacles are dark. The gray tone on the front plane. This is a side plane technically. This bottom feeler, the space between the bottom feeler and the top feeler, there's side plane, and in my drawing, there's a little teeny bit of the front plane. My orientation is a little bit different. I'm going to pretend that he's at the edge of a table or the edge of some surface. So I've got the side plane and then the actual plane that he's resting on. He's stretching his head to go down the hill. And the reason I think this is important to go down the hill is because it makes this line in the shadow, the cast shadow from the head, make a lot more sense. I'll have to zoom out so you can see that. Oh, hopefully you guys are okay with what I'm about to do, but so this is really the tabletop and then the side of the table, and that could go, that can go all the way down, and it could be any surface. As I add this, as I adjust some of these lines are almost too obvious, and so I'm just going to kind of smooth them out. X coordinate, Y coordinate, show how that side pours over. It can be a little bit, it almost feels like water, defining that plane. Okay, the reason I laughed is because I've got these two separate cubes over here, and there just would be so nice to draw these like miniature, quicker, more gestural versions. Just prove that I got it in my head. I got bracelet lines, I got longitudinal lines. They come in, they enter. I've got this nice little tongue tail. I laughed because I love the idea of like a family of snails. Going over the same edge. they're like snail lemmings running off. What are those lemmings that run off, that blindly run off the mountain, or that run off the cliff? Is that what they do? Is that the animal that does that?
Supposedly.
There's like a slow motion disaster with all these snails heading for the cliff. Somebody save them. Okay, we're getting a traffic jam over here with my snails. I feel like I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Like, let's just maybe just throw in a couple extra bracelet lines here, and then maybe carve off a little less of the skirt, and then I can see that the silhouettes break off of the head, and you really do get these powerful cones that he overly simplifies into just straight line edges. I do find the problematic that straight line, that gesture from the neck going all the way out at the end. It feels unnatural for some reason, but I have to give this another go sometime. Ooh, there's some perspective lines. That's too much. Now it's starting to look like Heinrich Clay. There's almost too much personality.
Who was he?
We've sketched him before. He was a German illustrator, political cartoonist.
Clay. Oh, Clay, K-L-E-E.
K-L-E-Y, I think.
Oh, E-Y, oh, okay. Oh.
K-L-E-Y? Yeah, I think so. And he did a bunch of like, he would do like actual snail, like, you know, people riding on the backs of snails
Oh.
with like harnesses and, you know, snails
Oh,
driving
yeah.
fast. So I'm just, I'm thinking about like the clock, you know, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, from really like 11 o'clock down all the way to 6. It really does get nice and dark on that bottom corner. And then there's the underside of that shell. So I hope we didn't, I obviously spent more time on this than I was thinking, but it's so good. I mean, it's so good. And I think it'll be, I think when we compare it to the, you know, some of the mark making language of Van Gogh, this more traditional, and it is more of a traditional, you know, approach to sketching. It'll hopefully crack open you know, the uniqueness and the originality of you know, the Van Gogh eyes, and you know, his system of code making on these details. All right, Stace, it's 10:46. Maybe we'll do a 3-minute warning here.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna try and, even though my snails are really small, I think I can make the regular, I can make the consistent toning, make them feel like they're all in the same plane. So I'm just doing the same thing. You know, it's a theme and variation. I can pick out 1 or 2 things that, you know, make them the same, whether they're, you know, kind of far, you know, mid-level distance away, or really far away. They're still, the marks will still, you know, conform. I wonder what's on that. I wonder what's down that hill. What do they even eat?
I was just going to ask that. I have no idea.
Well, we are very lucky that he decided to draw this. I'm shored up some of my silhouettes there. There is, I mean, even if you look at the way that his mark, the control that he has over his mark, you know, it starts really crisp and dense, and then it thins out a little bit, then it thickens up a little bit, then it thins out a little bit, then it thickens up. He's always got such brilliant variation going on.
Trevor, who is the artist?
It's Toulouse-Lautrec. And
Really?
I justified it by him being good friends with Van Gogh. And we didn't use, and with lithography, also with lithography, you don't use, you don't blend. You know, you can take like the edge and drag it across and get like a consistent tone, but it never really gets blended. They're truly crayons.
I blended. I probably shouldn't have, but I blended.
That's okay. No, that's the luxury of pencil.
Yeah.
That's the, you know, that's like, don't deny yourself. You know, the medium that, you know, what the lithography medium gives you is that once you make a drawing that you like, you can reproduce it 1,000 times.
Yeah,
That's that you sacrifice blending for volume and the production capability. If you're sketching with pencil, you're sacrificing production capability. So don't deny yourself the luxury of the tone, the blending of the tones rather. Every medium has its advantages and limitations. And I don't even want to say disadvantages. It's just there's a set kind of criteria. And the reason pencil is such a nice medium is because it has the capability of going quite dark. It has a relatively wide value range. Does it go black, deep black? No, you can only really achieve dark gray. Lithography, you can get the darkest, blackest blacks you could ever imagine. It's amazing. But you also can't erase. I mean, you almost have to like clear the entire stone with a rough material. You burn off the material. So like you get the rich darks, but you don't get the flexibility and the refinement. So and that goes for watercolor to oil to acrylic. Every one of them has the benefits that truly outshine the other medium. But then where one outshines the other is limited. So I mean, I could go off on that for a while, but and the medium should be seen through those lenses. Like one medium is not easier than another. Like people say it all the time. They're like, I heard watercolor is way harder than oil. I heard oil is a lot harder than watercolor. And you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, it depends what you get used to faster. What are the advantages that you're looking for? You want to be able to repaint it over and over and over again? You should do oil. Do you not want to get messy? No, you should do watercolor. Not want to ruin the interior of your car seats? Do watercolor. All right, let's not take a break, but I'm going to pause the screen share just so maybe we can take a glance at the people's S-Car Go, My Car Go. Let's see, Steph, you're up first just because you were there when I popped up. Oh, hold on. Whoa, groovy.
nice.
Beautiful.
You should do lithography. You would love lithography. You should do a class at Micah and just get in their print shop and do lithography. I swear to God, you'll cry.
Can you show it again, Stephanie?
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow.
Nice.
Very
Dynamite.
nice.
All right, Grace, that's you. Hey, Mal, how's it going, by the way? I haven't said hi to you yet.
Great. I'm so happy I am here.
Wow.
Oh, beautiful.
Hi.
Yes, and it's got the beautiful handwriting.
Oh, wow. I love the font.
Yeah,
Too.
that's dynamite.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thanks, Grace. I would get that tattooed on my ass. I mean, that was a compliment. I would get that tattooed on my person. But the only place I would ever get tattooed is on my butt. So it was not a reflection. It's like I love
Maybe you
it
need
so
to
much.
put Le Cochon there. He looked
I
a little
would
more
get-
butt worthy.
I would use the font. I would use the font too. All right. Yeah, sorry.
I've been playing around with hand lettering.
We're
It's
gonna
kind
have,
of
we're gonna have-
fun.
we're gonna have to edit that out. Maureen, you're up.
Uh-oh.
Did you go big, Rainey? Yes.
Oh, nice.
Good.
Yeah, that's good.
Gotta
Yeah,
hold that
I think
nice and still,
everybody.
Miss Rainey.
I love his neck.
Yeah, the neck is great, and the face, the head is great.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
head's better than.
Yeah.
It's a real stretch. Look at that real. That's a
Mm.
real stretch.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mel, you want to go? Did you get to sketch?
Sure. There's one.
Watercolor.
wow.
So sweet.
Yeah, dude,
Nice.
the
And
smiley
then,
face.
No way.
Oh my
Wait,
gosh.
wait. I lost Mallory.
Come
No
on.
way.
I was ready to have.
Watercolor.
a one-man show.
Privilege, that's
Now,
wonderful.
bring that second one up again, please.
Well, he mentioned family, and so I was like, oh, we'll add another one.
Aren't they
They look so happy.
So cute.
Yeah, the roundness, the sphere, the spherical nature of it. I like that shell a lot.
Let's
So
let's
round.
see the 3 others you did in that series.
Well, I was so mad. I wanted to put this in a frame, and I cut it to like literally a quarter of an inch too small, so it doesn't fit. So then I had to do this one, and I think this one is actually too big. So
You could scan it in, and then print it out whatever size you want to.
yeah,
Make
that's
it
what
a
I'll
little
probably
bit
do.
bigger, a little smaller. Stacy, did you get to draw it?
I did. I really enjoyed the front end, but I had a lot of trouble with this thing. Like,
Huh,
Oh,
Oh,
that's
nice.
good.
good.
Nice.
Thanks.
Nice.
see, I love this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I got dizzy. This was like it was hard for me.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
That's
really
nice.
good. I like
Thanks.
it. I would, if you struggle like that, maybe less is more. Like I mean, I feel like
Okay.
the escargot tail might even be long for him, and yours is a little bit longer than his. So I don't know. I
Mhm.
feel like with a snail tail, you would almost err on making it smaller than longer, especially if you're not into that part. But I mean, it looks fine.
Okay.
You know, but if it's about
Thank you.
if it's about narrow or being less dizzy.
Yeah, it was very
Ooh, look at Adele's. Nice.
Ooh,
hold on, Adele. Let's see
Nice.
here.
Yeah, and
Oh,
then
look at Esther.
Beautiful.
3D.
I love her tail. That's good. I don't like my.
Yeah.
well,
That's
and the big win of this one is the S curve in
Yeah.
the neck into the tentacle,
Yeah,
and then
Beautiful.
also the play off of that on the shell. So like there's a stronger S curve in the the opening of the shell, and then a stronger S curve in the the whole neck gesture.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
gorgeous.
Yeah.
That is like,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Look at
it works
right there, Esther.
so
Yeah.
nicely.
This was fun.
Good, I'm glad.
I like those elegant curves. That I really love to draw
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, and to extrapolate it and
Beautiful.
then to make it, it's more successful. Like I'm saying, I think that's actually what he was going for. And then he was like, maybe it's too much, and he pulled back on it, and he should have pushed it further, in my opinion. I don't know what he did struggle with the tentacles more so. Max, did you get to draw? Hey everybody, this is Max, by the way. He's
Max.
interning at Mitchell School.
Hey, Max.
Helping me, and he's like,
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Look at that.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
got
Woohoo.
an army of escorts.
Well, there's never just one.
All right. Hey, what's up, Sunny Bear? Good to see you.
That's great.
Oh, hi, Sunny.
Ah,
Put us on mute because we're trying to pick out coloring pages to print.
I'm gonna go down.
Uh-huh.
All right. Cool. So let's do the that's fun. If you guys want to send me those photos, that'll be nice. I wish I had the we'll get to the, oh my god, the back of my phone is cracked. I didn't see that before.
Oh,
Whoa, bro. Okay. This is not the front, I suppose. KLEA? Is it KLEA or KLEY? I think it's KLEY.
oh, that was Toulouse-Lautrec, right? Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
It is KLEY. Here's an extra fun one for you all. Oh. Oh wait, you guys can't even see because I'm not doing the screen share. Sorry. Screen share.
there we go.
Oh, not liquid libs. Sorry. We broke our fast last night by going to liquid libs.
What's that?
It's Libertories.
Oh.
It's like the casual bar on the other
Oh,
side.
okay.
Oh, you did wind up going to the Victoria's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, yours looks like a Toulouse-Lautrec Dali
Yeah,
piece.
nightmare.
I like, it's like the melting down into the, it's
Yeah.
very cool.
Thanks.
Sure.
You were talking about mine, right?
Yes.
Oh, I see that. Yeah. Okay, so I think this. I'm just gonna cut my losses. Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, yeah.
What?
I think I might just save the image
Oh,
just because I don't want to lose these. Are you guys looking at this? Oh, once
Nah.
it's such a big deal to get the screen share off and then back
Oh
on.
my gosh.
Okay, so this is a sketchbook page of Heinrich Clay. So this is the I love he's like a snail in the middle of the circus ring being trained by a like a lion tamer or like a horse tamer,
yeah.
but it's a snail, and then he's got the elephant wearing a snail. So if an elephant were a snail, so he's making like sort of a chimera. And then this snail looks like it's attacking this woman. It's a little scary. Oh, see, look at that tail, Stace. That's a huge one.
Wow.
That's not
Yeah,
the fun. That's not the fun one though. This is the fun one. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this is the HD version. So it's a snail.
Oh my.
Oh,
They're
whoa.
gonna hot off the. Look at those snails.
Huh.
Just looking at he's got the two long tentacles, the two short tentacles, gorgeous angles of the shell. It's interesting, that one being pointy, whereas this one is
Yeah.
not. But the jockey's riding off and the one falling off the back.
The movement expressed is just incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like how about Adele? How about that for an S curve?
Mm.
And the whip,
Mm-hmm.
the curve of the whip is pretty extreme.
I mean, he knew what he was doing. He really made some gorgeous pieces. He's the one that did these elephants, like the skating elephants, which I know we've drawn before. Really well trained, very fun. A lot of Fantasia, a huge influence on on Disney and the the European illustrators that came across to work with Disney.
What were his dates approximately?
Good question. I think like I mean, I think he made it to like World War One. But not that far after. Maybe not even. But I mean, this type of work is like so. Okay, yeah, he did. So, 1863, and then he lived all the way to 1945. So that's kind of impressive. He was a Munich illustrator and a political cartoonist. It really.
Yeah.
He was like the next generation Daumier.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's some very Daumier-esque.
Yeah.
That.
Oh, Maureen, thanks for the photo. Stephanie, thank you for this. Oh my God. Yeah, I didn't see that. This could have been useful earlier.
Oh,
Ah,
Oh, it's upper tentacle. Okay, yeah, vision. That mantle, the mantle edge. Oh, it's so good.
Ah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Lower
who'd have
tentacle
thunk it?
feeling and smelling.
And then the foot. Yeah, I called it the skirt, but the foot is the,
Mm.
however they move. I bet you that's
Yeah.
I bet you could probably watch a
The
YouTube video
breathing.
of a snail crawling like on a
Mm.
piece of glass, videotaped from the bottom. That'd be kind of cool.
Oh, wow. That would be cool.
YouTube's got everything. But we're running out of time, so we need to go get these Van Gogh eyes under control. And this is just going to be pure enjoyment. So when you draw these, draw them like way big. I mean, you can add to the drawing that you had last week if you want, or we can just sketch them huge. Max, you got a reproduction of the eyes, right? Did you? Mal, do you have the eyes
Which the eyes from that
from
portrait?
last week? From last week.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure Max and Mal have them.
All right.
I'm good.
Do you want just the eyes? You want this? Or do you want?
I mean, you should. I mean, I would work on the whole face. Yeah, that one on the one in your right hand. That one. I would use that one.
This one.
Whatever you can zoom in on the most.
Okay.
I'm just gonna send all these to Mal. No, not those. Okay, great. So we're ready to go. I gotta. Where's my paper?
So I can pull it up on my computer. Trevor.
Thank you, Henri. Such a nice guy. And actually, with the poems, it really is. He is so nice. I've got to get a book of all of Lautrec's writing. I have that. I have little bits and pieces, but he wrote like there's got to be a book of like all of his letters that have been translated.
Gosh.
I'll make a note.
Trevor, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Oh, Trevor, Max is trying
know
to
what-
talk to you.
I don't know which portraits it is. Could you just hold up a copy of it so I can pull it up on my computer?
Yes. It's this one. Did you get that one last week?
No, I wasn't here.
Okay.
I was in the gallery view. I didn't see it. Did you pull it up?
I'm forwarding it to you.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
Trevor, is that your pencil sharpener?
No. I'm not doing anything.
You were doing something.
I wasn't. I have to go all the way back to last Thursday. Oh my God. There's so many damn emails. How is this even possible? I think Kristen's doing a very good job. Okay,
Indeed.
I know. Indeed. All right, there we go, Max. This should be coming to you soon. What is your email, Max? I got it. It's there. Okay. All right, cool. They should be coming through. I think it's Maureen's printing again.
Ah, Maureen is
Just
guilty.
kidding. I didn't mean to come at you like that.
And I'm muted, so no, I'm not printing. And
I know.
It could easily have been you, Rini.
I think we should just draw. I think we should draw these. I wish I could even draw them bigger. I want to draw them huge. Because they're so abstract and they're so fun. Maybe I should do this one. No, it's got the bar in it. That one. There we go.
So are we going to focus on the eyes?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That's it. Just on the eyes.
I think they're so big, and I think mine were too big on my original that I drew the whole thing, you know? I kept
Yeah.
staring at her face, trying to figure out what I did wrong, but I think I made the eyes too big.
Relative to the whole thing. So yeah, Max, last week we did, and Mal, if she's still there, we did like head structure. So we just tried to like place all the features. And today I wanted to just focus in on either the eyes and the nose, or maybe even just the eyes, and kind of get a sense of how the mark making was used, and just have, kind of just like think about all the techniques that he was using with this pen and ink, which isn't really using any, traditional tone. And this was like a big breakthrough piece for him, because he had been essentially only painting landscapes, and he had this great success with this, pen and ink series of landscape sketches. And he hadn't really, he had been trained to draw people, but he used landscape to develop a new style, basically a new style. And he's employing his new style with, two people, and he's really kind of doing it for the very first time. And these are the portraits that we know and remember him for. Like this is like, this is the piece that was even before all of his self-portraits, his colorful self-portraits. This is like what launched a whole subgenre of his picture making. And this is on sale at Sotheby's right now, with a $10 million estimate on the high end. Also, guys, a little update on the Christie's meteorite auction. It was very, very strange occurrences, but pieces that were going for $10,000, $13,000 were basically selling for 350,000, 500,000. Things that were like $1,000 were getting 17,000, 25,000. And I haven't read any articles. It just happened on Tuesday. So I looked it up, and they had an article on I looked at the, I guess it's, art market news or something like that. Anyway, like a major art auction records publication, they were talking about this piece. Oh, that's bad. Yeah, they were talking about this piece and not the other one. But I mean, I honestly, I feel bad for the for the person who made the estimates, because I'm like, they're gonna get fired because they were so off, just so off the mark. Excitingly, because there's there's this piece of moldavite, which I essentially, I have a piece of moldavite that's not quite on that caliber, but in the wheelhouse, and it was supposed to go for 1,000, and it went for like 1850, 18,500. So I don't know what the heck is going on with that market.
It's the new Moldavite standard.
Exactly. I mean,
Cool.
it's completely reset the bar for these extraterrestrial stones. Okay. So is this in focus, by the way? You guys can see it, right? You have your own.
Uh,
You have your own.
Yeah.
printout. Why is that? It got really dark for some reason. Get bigger. Okay, that's brighter.
Lighter, darker. Yeah,
Um,
it keeps going back and forth a little bit.
so the form that I'm going to be focusing on when I'm starting is obviously the keystone, and it's just such an interesting. I mean, the front of the keystone. So the top of the keystone, he gives us a point right here, which is the tip of the eyebrow. So it's the tip of the eyebrow on either side, and the eyebrow on the right is is higher. So this is angled up over here, which is like kind of helps with perspective. It kind of helps push this side of the face back, and this form of the eyebrow ridge is let me just sketch it right here. So the form of the eyebrow ridge there is, you could argue it's a cone, or you could argue it's a prism. And when I say prism, I mean it goes under here, and then it goes like that, and it ends in that dot right there. I could say cone because the hair and the strokes run in a bracelet line across, and then he does have this line that helps give us an underplane suggestion of tone, and then a light plane on top, and that's how you do eyebrows. I mean, there's no doubt that's the way to sketch eyebrows. I just think it's interesting when you finish it with a dot, and then you can so obviously tell that the ending point of this eyebrow and this eyebrow is up and to the right, whereas the tear duct to tear duct, I would argue, is, I mean, it's not straight across. This one is lower and this one is higher, but it's not at the same rate as the one on the right. So this is up and to the right, yes. This is even steeper up and to the right. And then if by getting that layered vector, we're gonna be looking for that same angle in the mouth and in the nose. So the shape that we're gonna get is this trapezoid right here. So the top of the trapezoid is eyebrow tip to eyebrow tip, and then we're gonna angle in this funnel shape, and then right at the base, basically just slightly above the tear duct here is going to be the base of it. The edge of that keystone and the edge of the nose, the bridge of the nose. So this is the top plane of the nose. This is the side plane of the nose. We have light vertical lines and a series of dots, a series of stippling. So when you stipple, the way that one of the ways that you don't stipple is going back and forth in straight lines, unless you want that, unless you're looking for that. Most stippling happens in a spiral and looping spirals. That's how you get like the seemingly random placement. And then when you stipple, you never want to stipple in the same place twice. That's like the no-no. I suspect that Van Gogh is going to have a system of stippling that's going to be helpful, meaning that he's going to have curved stipples like this. Stacy and I were in class with the little kids, and we were talking about snowmen. We were sketching snowmen, and the buttons are are dots that are a stippling string that help define the curvature of the roundness of the form. I think that might occur, so where he's using actual lines, the direction of the lines, we're gonna look for stippling that either counter that, meaning we'll do lines in this direction and then stippling in the Y direction. So X direction this way, Y direction with the stipple. So we'll look for stippling that counters the line, and then we'll look for a stippling that goes along with the line work. And then we'll look for stuff that can't necessarily be organized. That might be this like spiral stippling that I'm talking about. But like the way that he's integrated line and stipple at the same time, and the way that he's been able to make it not look like stubble. I mean, to make hair not look like stubble in a dots on a person's face is like not easy. I mean, notice he leaves the stippling out in like basically the last place you would ever want to have stipple, which is in your unibrow. I wonder what he does with the upper lip. Yeah, he manages to get stippling on this upper lip. And if you allow yourself to think, facial hair, you can switch over and see facial hair very quickly. That's why it's like, I think that's why the eyes are so dark and so big. And I think that's why there's so much stippling like in the background, is that if the whole thing has stipples, then the reason stippling looks like hair is because if it only used in those locations, that would actually be a hilarious exercise, is to remove all the stippling except for the parts that are on the beard, and and see how awkward that would look. So the dots in a context work, taken out of context, don't work, which is logical, but he really puts that to the test here. Okay, and when we make our mark making with the pencil, it's really nice that you can make light lines with pencil, but we want to almost take the approach that we don't have the luxury of erasing. So when you make marks with a pen, you kind of get into a mentality that you can't erase. So you kind of have to go headlong into it. And there's like no turning back. So we can get some pencil lines that you obviously can erase. I'm not saying don't erase, but we're eventually going to have to get into the pattern of the mark making mentality, where we want to minimize the amount of erasing that we do. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, let's try to, I'm gonna change my pieces of paper because I really want to be able to have the whole portrait done. At least the features. Is anybody else nervous?
Yeah, always.
Okay. All right. So I think I have enough. I think I have enough room on my paper. I may have to zoom up or zoom down, but all right. So let's do the two dots for. Let me try to line it up with his. So these are the two dots for our initial trapezoid. And you can see there's these three beautiful dots that go along that line. just kind of getting oriented. This is the narrowest part. And then it starts to widen out again as you get this is bone that comes in from the brow, and then it hits the nose, and at the very initial portion of the nose, as the nose starts to angle back out of the head, that is bone initially. And then, kind of down here, I would say right around there, this is about where the nose is going to begin to turn into cartilage. So it goes, brow down into the nose. It gets to widen out at that trapezoid, and it's going to continue to get wider. And especially when it gets into the cartilage. So let's start. I think this is an enormous distance from these 3 dots at the base of the keystone to come all the way across here to the tear duct is such a long distance, and it's almost like it's going to be like a walk through the desert. I know we'll get there, and we just want to estimate it. I just want to take this short stint over to this to the right side eye first, just to almost like warm up. So look at these, see these long steep lines, and then where where he uses dots, that is the edge of the that's the beginning of the edge of the socket. Even if we're using dots, we know that the dots represent like tonality. They can also be markers. So I've got long thin lines cascading down, and then I've got my stipples. And then here's the base, and then we're going to come over. We actually get the start of the upper eyelid. Fascinating. We see the start of the upper eyelid angled up this way, and then he has a series of vertical lines, which may even have been afterthoughts, that kind of push this whole eyelid, which was probably too light, pushes this whole eyelid back. It's a universal plane, but it runs all the way from the tear duct. It runs all the way up until the back end of the pupil. So like the right side of the pupil. So I'm not quite there yet, but these straight lines end or begin, however you see them, where the tear duct begins. And here's our wonderful triangle for the tear duct. And the upper portion of the tear duct is the base of the upper eyelid, and it's darker. The line is our whole darkest part of the line is going to be the underside of this eyelid, where you see the underside of the eyelid and kind of a condensed set of eyelashes right in here. There are eyelashes that begin right after the tear duct, so it's a shadow plane. As well as being hair, and just the dark line represents that. So we get the beginning of the bottom eyelid, which is the bottom of the triangle, and then we get this nice light gray triangle before you get the light of the sclera. So notice as we come out of this triangle, we have the top of the triangle, which is the eyelid, the bottom of the triangle, which is the lower eyelid, which is going to go right up against the eyeball itself. This is the watermark where the eyelid touches the eyeball, and it looks as though there's a black triangle, but there's really not. It's a black upper eyelid line, then a dark gray triangle. Then it gets light again at the sclera, and then we get the edge of the iris, and it's just another vertical line. It's amazing how we know that the iris is round, but that edge of the iris is is like, it's like a straight. And I love what Van Gogh does here, is because if you ever look at a person when they're sleeping, the contour, the circumference of the eyeball itself is a certain roundness, which is a sphere, and then the iris has a lens underneath it, and so it kind of curves up. So the roundness of the hill of the eyeball might run like this, whereas the iris is a shorter bump. And watch what happens when the lower eyelid comes across, and as soon as it hits the iris, you get the beginning of a new, contour line. I'll see if I can explain this here. So you have a sphere, and then you have a iris. The sphere has a line that runs like this, which would be the like a latitudinal line. So that latitudinal line comes here, and then it's the same angle all the way around. And then the iris is a different one. So the lower eyelid comes across at a certain angle and then hits that iris, and then you get, and it's more pointy. And once you commute, and that's what's so wonderful. And so depending on where the eye is, and you could make that case that it happens here, but he's not indicating it. So the eyelid is coming across here, hits the iris, and then the watermark curls at a different level, and then it disappears. Then it flattens out as it goes beyond the iris. It's going to come up the other side. Wow. All right. While we're on this lower eyelid, we might as well give it that thickness. You want to think about it like the flat mantle of the escargot shell. So that shelf comes out, and then it starts to curve around. The eyelashes are on the outside of the lower eyelid. I'm putting in these thin lines, knowing that I'm going to come back in and finish them. I needed to make sure that there was enough room for the eyebrows, but now that I know that, I'm going to move my eyeball a little closer. All right, so it's about to be fun here. So when we looked at the beginning of class, before we even started recording, about the deer, that deer where there was the ghost of the deer, the smaller first attempt, that's what I'm making the argument. That is what Van Gogh's first arc was. So the top of this arc, it's going to peak, and then it's going to curve down the side. So we're going to come up with this vector. I'm thinking about the outside of the iris, the outside of the eyelid coming up, and then it's going to crash down this side or angle back down. Now that's the top of the triangle. The bottom of the triangle, I'm going to come across, and then you can see the darkest part, which is thin. So I'm going to allow that. I'm going to see through the line that's there, and I'm going to thicken that. And now for the third run, I'm going to come up where I have been, and then I'm going to see where the new break is. And there's this very, very thick, dense upper eyelash shape. And it feels like her eyelashes are almost like falling down, almost like a, awkward. Eyelashes don't really do that, but we'll figure more about it. So we got the left side, going back to the tear duct, and I'm always using that tear duct as a, as a starting point. We got the tear duct, upper eyelid, gray triangle, light of the sclera, the white of the eye, and then I'm getting the thick wall of the left side of the iris. And that left side of the iris starts vertical, and it angles in, showing, angling towards the bottom of the circle. Now the lower eyelid crops the bottom of the iris, so we don't see the extreme bottom, but we do see the bottom. There's a series of rings leading into the center of the pupil, and there's not that many. There's only 3. So there's the dark black silhouette of the iris. Then there's the radiating lines of the color portion of the iris, be it blue or brown or green, what have you. And then there's the moon. Well, I'll call it the crescent moon, the light part of the moon, and then the dark part of the moon. So it's the crescent moon, and then the dark side of the moon. And as is the dark pupil. So we're kind of seeing the highlight of the eye being this inside rim of the iris, which is not necessarily the reflection of the eye. It's kind of a new idea. All right, so as I'm drawing this outside rim of the iris, I'm seeing that how thick it is on the left side. And then as it approaches the bottom, it disappears until you just see the edge. And we're gonna pull up the inside edge of the outer rim. It's gonna curve up, and that's gonna disappear underneath our eyebrow form. Now, that was the inside of that dark rim. So I need to get the outside of the dark rim and make it the appropriate thickness. There are people that do have dark rims around the outside of their eyes. Dogs have extremely dark rims on the outside of their eye. This is where I can have a moment of reflection where I think, okay, well, now that I've got the rim, the lower eyelid, the upper eyelid, and the side of the iris, now I can determine whether my sclera is the right shape. And this is why honing in on these details really matters. You know, I know we did the drawing last week, but being able to sketch this accurate, beautiful white of the eye, you know, like bringing the eyelid down a little bit, bringing the lower eyelid up a little bit, and you know, and then accurately drawing the silhouette of the iris. That shape is so awesome. And you know, he lived for it, we live for it. It's just great. And I hope it's and I hope I'm correct. Close enough. Okay, so we've got this rim, black rim, where you see the right side, not see the bottom, and then we see the left side. Two ways we could do this. We got the upper eyelid. We could use the oval of the pupil, and it's a curious little shape. I don't know why it's not spherical, but he's making his wider than it is tall. I'm acknowledging that it's cropped at the top, but even that it is cropped at the top, if you were to extrapolate it, still wouldn't be perfectly round. And then the reason I did that first is because I'm trying to defend the white of my paper so I can have the crescent moon, the light. So I need the most important shape in here, or not necessarily the most important, but the most vulnerable is the moon, because you don't want to have any pigment on there. And now we get these radiating lines. So I started with the vertical, and you know, isn't it like the flag of China, or is it the old flag of Japan? What has the radiating sun lines with red and white?
It's Japan.
I think it is Japan. So I don't know how long Japan had that flag, but I don't know if he's giving a shout out. Now I'm noticing also, I'm going to come in here, draw it a little bit larger, but these radiating lines are not straight lines. They are actually narrower against the moon, and then they get wider as they extend out. And this is an over exaggeration, but it's important to know that it's narrow to wide. So maybe find the placement, and you know, this
Finish your Pokeball.
feels like it's a pinwheel. And you know, the being able to draw this pattern, and I think I was trying to I know I was doing this last week, where Van Gogh did this all the time, and everybody has to do this. Landscape painters are the ones that do it the most, in the sense that they go out into the landscape and they'll make sketches, or they'll make small color studies in oil, and then they go back to the studio and they paint these grand paintings. So there's a huge gap in between, like the direct observation and then the execution. And you know, it's like you really know how well, you really can test yourself on how familiar you are with the subject by, you know, drawing it out of your imagination and attempting to draw it representationally. And I have this like hilarious painting in my studio of my bird feeder and the birds. I've only ever painted any of it from imagination. And there's a freedom that you get. It's scary going into the unknown, and it can be almost too open-ended. But when you develop a harmony between pattern making and art making, and the ways that you can stylize the components of your picture and then harmonize those with actual anatomy, you can be when you look at a person's eye, it can be debilitatingly complex, where you really have to acknowledge the fact that you're looking at nature, which is infinity, and you're translating it into a series of marks that is almost infinite. The marks that you're making you can do, every artist would do it in a different way. So we're drawing eyes, but we're drawing more Van Gogh's system for marks that represent those eyes. And they're really fun. And I mean, and they're, I don't want to call them childish, but like when kids start drawing eyes, they do make the iris with radiating lines coming out like this. I'm just impressed that he had the courage to do that. And I don't know if it's courage or folly, but I love how he. It's strange because he has, even though it is pen, it seems as though he's got directional marks radiating out, but then also a contour, like an X direction of echoing the moon shape. Ooh, tonight's the full moon. Tonight's
Is
the
it?
full moon. Yeah, 3 in the morning. Technically, it's Saturday. But
Cool.
I love full moon Fridays. I love full moon Fridays. But it's not Friday, it's Thursday. Sorry, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow at 3 a.m. Saturday morning at 3 a.m. Tomorrow night, Friday night. It will be a full moon Friday. Good girl. All right. So with my pencil and my limitations of the pencil, I'm coming. I have most of the things placed in the eye that I can. It's almost like the shell of the escargot, where there's no turning back from where we are now. So I can kind of clean it up a little bit. I can punch my darks a little bit. I know that I still need this fold up here. I know I need to bring the brow ridge and come back in, where you need to detail the lower eyelid, the lower eye socket, actually. So we'll get there, but the space between the eyelids is pretty well established and isn't really going anywhere. So I'm enjoying this, and I'm punching and redefining the the upper eyelids and the eyelashes. He's got a couple stipples in this lower eyelid. And then the line that he utilizes for the outside ridge of the lower eyelid is a lot darker. And then I wonder if these eyelashes are utilized as almost extensions of the radiating lines from the iris. And they are.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, so they skip over, and they're further brilliant. Well, probably should have done that with the upper eyelashes as well. Okay, so in order for this eyelid to go around the eyeball, we need to know where the eyeball ends. And the side of the eyeball will say where the lower eyelid meets with the upper eyelid. And you can look through this whole thing. He gives us, he shows us that side view. There's a line buried beneath all of that, which is the side plane of the eyeball. So now we know if we know the distance between the eyelash and the fold, now we know where it ends with the side of the eyeball. Now we have to figure out where it begins, which is back with our original, our original dot. And we'll come up. The line becomes so thick that you can almost break it into two separate lines. The bottom, defining the upper eyelid by this top line. And then we're gonna do that line gets thick, so we'll do the upper version as well. There's a couple different lines that angle out from here. This is actually the bone of the sausage. That's going to help get us the eyebrows. Before I do the eyebrows, I think there's a couple easy, helpful notations for this lower eyelid. The lower eyelid is wrapping around the sphere of the ball. Now, there's puffy tissue and fluid and fatty materials that help pad the eyeball. So this lower eyelid, the eyelid that touches the part of the eyeball, is kind of representative of the circumference of the eyeball. But then as the eyelid goes down, the transition into the cheek is much softer. So we are getting, lines that echo the edge of the eyelid, but they're going to flatten out and be less severe. So they're not actually direct rings. And then where those end is where the actual cheek begins. And there's some horizontal lines that indicate that. And these lines, are on the shadow side, the right side. And then they disappear. Those lines disappear and become stippling. But make no mistake that the round part of this lower eyelid that leads back up into the keystone, this is all one kind of, one understandable form. Two separate marks of stippling and line, and then the line disappears and it just remains stippling. Now, unfortunately, I guess this version is the right angle, but it's a little blurry. It's not as crisp as I would have originally liked, but I think we can, why not introduce the stipple and its uniqueness. So there's some dark marks, and then as you make the stipple, be intentional about whether it's a dark stipple, a mid-tone stipple, or a very light stipple. And you can almost quantify the ratio. And I think some of these stippled edges do conform to the line work. The line is at an arc that defines the wrapping around of that eyelid, and I think some of the stippling does that as well. Just try to be a little disciplined about where you place it, and place it intentionally beautiful. Like, where do they need to be for the sake of the piece, and not just totally random. There's so many of them that you can't necessarily seek the order, but every mark should be a intended beauty mark. Oh, that was a nice quote.
Yeah.
I'm gonna save all the lines and the stipples on the upper brow ridge for when I explain those component parts. But this lower eyelid it's kind of a low consequence area to kind of almost get practiced and introduced to a potential mode of mark making and stippling for the rest of the piece for yourself. Be it Van Gogh strategy or our own personal strategy. Okay, great. So yeah, I think this 10 minutes, I think it'll be really nice to do the upper eyebrow. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller so we can see. Is that the best way to go? I think it is. Yes. The problem area at this moment is with the silhouetted edge of the face and the phone. So you can see everything. Maybe that's what we do first. We'll kind of clarify the silhouetted edge of the face. So let's get back. Let's get back. Okay, yeah, we're fine. This is actually fine. This is curving under. We have the angle of the brow, or the angle of the eyelashes, the outside of the eyelid. There's one, this line here, which remains dark, is the side of the eyeball. And I think this line here is actually the end of the eyelid. This intersection of the brow ridge, how that angles up, we're gonna come up at this angle, and then we're gonna follow where the base of the mountain that is the eyebrow. So we're gonna come across and enter back into the keystone. So our original dot, we're gonna come back into here. So you could start from there and move over to this point, or you can start from this point and move over to here. Either way, I think we're gonna have to do it both ways conceptually. So this distance up here, we're gonna come across. That seems like convex up, and then for some reason it seems like it dips, maybe concave down. That's interesting. And then it goes convex back into our point. Do you see how that goes? The bit like the base of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who knows? I needed to get this really badly. So now I can get this little teeny shape. I don't even know what you would call it, but you have a little bit of a puffy eyebrow here, with the edge of the brow ridge, the edge of the eyelid, and then the eyelash comes and kisses the edge right here. So now this is a very foreshortened temple. And these are the temples back here. And where it hits this eyelash is, I think, where we would begin the cheekbone. So I'm naming separate things, the temple, the cheekbone, and then we'll put a vertical up here for that's like the beginning of the skull up there. I'll just call it a vertical. All right, yeah, this is awesome. So hopefully because the eye is so out of context right now, it's nice to, in my opinion, it's nice to almost see it in the abstract. And what this feels like oh, that's what it was. So we sculpted cupcakes yesterday. Look at the base of this eyebrow ridge, everything above the fold of the eye. This feels like a cylindrical cupcake ridge. I don't know if you can see that. And then the eyebrow hair.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
eyebrow hair is the cupcake icing. So I made this topping, and then this is the base of the cupcake, and it widens up here and here. And then the hair on the top is the icing. I think it's
Trevor, is the line of the eyebrow, is that the bottom edge of the eyebrow or the center line of the eyebrow?
Let's see. Say that again.
The horizontal line of the eyebrow that you drew,
Mhm.
is that the bottom edge eyebrow above?
Oh,
above?
yes.
Yeah, is that the
Yeah,
bottom edge?
this is the bottom edge
Bottom edge.
of the
Okay.
icing, the top edge of the cupcake. So
Okay.
the fold is the bottom
Okay.
of the cupcake. Then we come up with the paper, the paper holder. And then the icing is the top. So this line here was that ridge. And that line will disappear because that represents the, so we could actually start with like the longest line of the eyebrow. And then they look like sticks that are kind of laid on top of a forest fire. Not a forest fire, a campfire
Yeah.
before you light it. And these will de-escalate in size and hopefully terminate exactly in the right spot. So the marks on this on the cupcake are fantastic. So the cupcake folds, which we did, which are kind of like radiating, then we'll come across with these lines that turn the corner, just like the fold of the eye. They wrap around this brow ridge and then come across, wrap around and come across, wrap around and come across. And then there's a counter mark set of marks, which is these vertical lines, which we had from the very beginning, which kind of flatten that whole section out. And then the transition from our cupcake into the socket at this angle. And we can refine the thickness of the brow hair, either adding more or thickening the lines that already exist. And then the final set of marks are the stipples, which seem to go across. And I think they're supposed to represent shading. I think yeah, they're definitely not texture. And I think he's anticipating brush strokes. But I don't know because this painting is so bad. When we get into the, I gotta show you this where it's so fun, so awesome. Look at the.
Wow.
So this is.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the postman. This is portrait is what set this off. So this is him essentially painting eyes as finest as you're gonna get out of Van Gogh. But look at the eye, look at all the little, see all the little dots that are, like when he's making his stippling along this ridge here, even even not so much in the eyelid, but like in the brow ridge, and even like in the forehead. Look at the there. Those notations that we're seeing as marks. He's thinking and conceiving them as either thickness of paint or color. And I mean, he had the coding in his own head.
Trevor, I'm afraid I have to run, but
Yeah, no,
thank you
it's okay.
so much. And if everyone could please send pictures to Trevor, that would be great. And ladies and gentlemen, I will see you next week. Trevor, I'll talk to you in a bit.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Stace.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Stacy.
I- Ooh, I got to go too, actually.
Yeah, no, I mean it's 12 o'clock. I mean that's class. But I guess people were, I don't know, like a little hesitant about going back in and digging in on these
That was good.
on these details, but it's just like it's like we did all of the head structure last week. We did all of that so that we could actually justify this level of detail.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See you all soon. Bye.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fun.
Good. Can I see? Can you see your eye real quick? Do you have it?
Yeah. As far as I got.
Hold on. I gotta pin you.
Okay.
It's taking 1 second. Replace pin. Yeah, beautiful. That's great. All right. Thanks, Grace. Yeah, it just takes a long time. Max, did you get to sketch the eyes?
Yeah, the
I'm gonna replace the pin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's stunning, dude.
thanks.
That's a nice
Really nice.
sketchbook page. Very 19th century
Yeah.
French.
Thanks. See you next week.
All right, see you, Grace.
Bye.
Can you hear me, Max?
Yeah,
Cool. Did you like that?
yeah, it was interesting. I liked how you with the snail, you really went into like the details of the construction, and then you were able to draw those other snails like really well, just based on your analysis of the construction. That was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that was cool. I'm glad you liked that. Yeah, I was that was delightful for me too. All right, dude. Well, when will I see you next? Will you be able to come in on Saturday?
Yeah,
So there's a Saturday youth class, and then did you make it last Saturday or no? You did, right?
I think so. That was yeah, that was my first class, right? I think so.
Yeah, I think so. So I have another class that meets from I have a Zoom class that's from 10 to 11 on Saturday. And then I have an in-person class that meets from 11 to noon, which is like elementary school kids. So they're not as rambunctious as the group that was yesterday, but they're about the same age. They're like a little bit older. So if you wanted to do some in-class stuff, and I suspect that we'll probably do the same, maybe we'll do the same exercise that we did, because the one that we did yesterday worked really well. So so I'll probably do a repeat on that. So if you want to join that, that's from 11 to noon. And then if you liked the
That
older
sounds really
kids, the 1 to 3, you can do that as well. So it's just that it's up to you.
okay. I can try to make it out to the 1 to 3 one. So
Okay,
you're gonna be
cool.
doing then?
Yeah, and then maybe we'll, as a part of the lesson, maybe we'll even work on, trying to making basically making TikTok videos. I might actually, I think the lesson for the day might be making TikTok videos for art TikTok videos, like drawing ones.
Yeah.
Because it's the only way you learn how to do anything is by teaching it. So I think that could be really fun.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Got this learning textbook hanging around that I keep meaning to finish, and it's got like a hierarchy pyramid of, what is sticks in your head, the best way to learn essentially, and it's like lecture 10% chance of going into long term, say talking about it like 50% chance, but then teaching is like the pinnacle or the base, I guess, and that's 90%.
Yeah.
So that is the best way.
Cool. All right, well, let's do it. That 1 o'clock class will be a art TikTok. We'll look out maybe between now and then. Let's find some like really good art TikTok videos. You know how you found the one of the guy doing the core training? We'll see if we can find some classics in art. And I found a couple. And then I'll tell you my idea now, and I'll probably write it out. But I had to do a deep. I basically found these sculptures at auction that looked really interesting. I thought they were beautiful, and I decided to buy them even though they were, inexpensive, and I didn't know anything about them. And then, so that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to be like, I found these sculptures at auction. I bought them for a cheap price, and then I did a deep dive. And so it's like, then I found out that they were sculptures that were made at a cast company in Philadelphia. A bunch of the casts that this company made also made sculptures for my school because I recognized a couple marks on them. And then we found the actual catalog through the Smithsonian. So the Smithsonian had published the catalog for these casts, and we actually were able to locate them and locate their what their names were And then because we knew the names, then we could do a deep dive on what they were actually represented, which are these like ancient terracottas from this like one island in Greece. And it's just like, so like, I just want to go through like a quick, like, I did this, I did this, I did this, and then it took me here, and it took me here, and it took me here, and it took me here. And it's like, now that these things that like, you know, are seemingly innocuous actually have this deep, rich connection to our school specifically, and then to like, you know, the history of like art as a whole. And I think that would be like so sweet for like a 30-second or a 1-minute TikTok video.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like a good idea. Definitely really specific to the school, and yeah, just good advertisement as well, I suppose.
All right, so I'll look for some other cool ones. See if I find some. Yeah, the one that you found was like a really good one. See if we can find any that are art related, and that might not even be that necessary, but we'll just we'll just figure out how they work, and then how we can like effectively communicate our ideas, and that'll be the spirit of the class. So like as I teach it, we'll be like, how can we communicate? You know, just be like, for example, like anybody can take something that they can draw really well. Like what's one thing that they do really well, and then they can make a video about how they draw that one thing. And everybody has something that they're confident in, even at a young age. You're
Nice,
like,
yeah.
you know, so we'll just like hone in on that, not necessarily focus on the content, but just focus on, you know, getting the process of putting together a TikTok video and what the steps of that look like, and minimize some of the mistakes. I think that'll be fun.
Definitely. Yeah, sounds good.
All right, cool. Do you have any other questions? Did you enjoy how did you think class went overall? I guess yeah, we talked about that. That's good.
Yeah, I love looking at those Lautrec sketches. Some of those were really nice, and he like changes up his style a little bit between them. So yeah, I definitely learned some stuff.
Good. All right, man. Listen, I'll see you Saturday.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Max. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.